Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Now, as you may or may not know, this week is Hour of Code. Now, the Hour of Code started as a 1-hour introduction to computer science, kind of trying to demystify the idea of coding to show that, anybody can learn the basics and just kind of getting more kids interested in computer science. And it starts with, 1-hour coding activities, but it can expand to so much more. And there are so many connections between art and coding, art and computer science. And I know that a lot of art teachers are looking for ways to take part in Hour of Code. So I wanted to talk today about coding, and luckily we have a great connection. Our friend Jen Leban, who has been on the show and at the Now conference before, actually illustrated a book that came out this fall called Coding to Kindness. And she is here today along with the author of the book, Valerie Sousa, who is a kindergarten teacher who uses coding in her classroom to help develop so many skills with her students. Now, Coding to Kindness is a great book about coding, but it's also about friendship and social and emotional learning, and it has great illustrations and fantastic puzzles, and it can serve as a wonderful introduction to so many topics in the classroom. So we're going to talk about all of those things, and maybe a little bit about what it's like to write a book and illustrate a book with Valerie and Jen, a couple of amazing teachers. So let me bring them on now. All right, I am here with Valerie Sousa and Jen Leban. Hello to both of you. How are you, Valerie?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are excited to chat with you, Jen. Welcome back. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Glad to hear it. I guess to begin, can we just have both of you introduce yourselves so everybody knows who we're talking to? Jen, you've been on the show before, so you get to go first.
Woohoo! All right. So my name is Jen Leban. I am originally an art teacher. That's what I went to school for. So I taught art for 13 years at the middle school level. Then I taught tech for a while. And this year I started a new adventure at elementary, and I am a K-5 library media specialist. So I also teach STEM and makerspace curriculum. So it's kind of this hybrid of all those things that I love, the tech and the making and the being creative and the art stuff. And the newest adventure is I can also add a children's book illustrator to that bio there.
Very nice. Very nice. Valerie?
Yes. Hi. So I am a kindergarten teacher. I've been a kindergarten teacher for over a decade now, a little over a decade. And I started a few years ago coding in the classroom and integrating a lot of that into my kindergarten classroom. And I loved it so much. And it's sort of where the inspiration for Coding to Kindness came along and connected me with Jen. And then here we are today.
Oh, perfect. And gives me a perfect segue. I wanted to ask about your book. So, Valerie, can you just tell us a little bit about the book, what it is, the inspiration behind it, and what kind of made you want to write the book in the first place?
Mm-hmm. So I did start coding in the classroom about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. This year's been a blur. So
yes,
we can give or take a year.
For all of us.
So I was kind of looking at it more from the academic light, where I was hoping to get mathematical skills and, computational thinking and really get them thinking about all that. But then so much more was just handed in a nice, beautiful silver platter to me, because coding brings so much more than just that. It brings so many more things to the classroom. So I really started to notice how much of a change and a shift my students were having with being kind to one another and listening and being respectful and understanding everyone has a different path to get there, and being patient. Like all those really important solid skills that need to be taught in kindergarten started just coming alive. And it was a very authentic way to practice those skills, which was really important. So I started thinking about it, and I really wanted to write a book about coding because I loved what it brought to the classroom, but then I also wanted to incorporate that kindness piece. So the book is also near and dear to my heart because I chose 3 characters that are near and dear to me. They're amazing women in computer science. So there's Ada Lovelace, Grace Hopper, and Dorothy Vaughan.
Mm-hmm.
And they are wonderful pioneers of computer science. And there's a little bio in the book as well as information on the website too about them. But it just gives kids an opportunity at an early age to just dive into coding, and at a very basic level. It's not any binary coding going on. But it's a really cool process because it's just like, we need to learn our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and that turns into sentences and then picture books and novels and so on, and it builds, and we need to start somewhere. And I think it's really cool that we can start in a K-2 setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really novel, a really unique approach, which I think is really cool. Now, Jen, let's chat about the newest line on your resume for children's book illustrator. How did you originally connect with Valerie to illustrate this book, and like what made you, want to work on it? What drew you to the idea?
Well, clearly, like with my arts background, art is something I enjoy doing. Art is I guess it's the driving force behind my life's work. And I think all the art teachers can relate to that. We just have this drive to create.
Yeah.
So I'm a constant doodler, way into like sketchnoting and things like that. Hipster sketchnoter before it was cool. So I had been putting some of my little doodles online. I actually worked with, I don't know if you're familiar with Slides Mania, but I did, she does like slides themes for like PowerPoint and Google Slides. So I did a theme with her just through like interacting on Twitter and stuff. And I had really had fun with that. And I kind of put out into the world like, hey, I'd like to, illustrate a book someday. And a lot of my education friends are doing like those, teacher books and things. So I actually have a friend, like friend through friends, how it works, all the networking, that runs EduMatch Publishing. And I had sent her some of my work, like just kind of a portfolio, just my little cartoony sketches. So nothing like super formal and fancy. And Valerie actually picked me from my little portfolio. So it's super, super cool and sweet, but it worked out well because not only do I have, the art background, but the like kind of coding and tech and like girls in STEM motivation as well. So it was just like the project was the perfect thing. So when I got asked to do it, I was like, how can I not? This is amazing. So yeah
absolutely. That's everything you love wrapped up in one. So that's
pretty
really
much.
Nice. So, and then Jen, can you talk a little bit about your illustration style? I mean, you mentioned the portfolio, but are these drawings or these illustrations similar to what you always create, or did you push yourself and do something differently for this book?
That's such an interesting question because I don't know if I ever felt like I had a style, except that when I was in college, I had a professor tell me once that my art was feminine, like meaning like kind of cutesy. It had like a soft edge to it. And that always kind of stuck with me because I took it as like a negative. And I was like, oh, I'm not edgy enough. And I'm not, like I can't make it in the art world. Like, and I always kind of had that like with me. So when I was thinking about this book, I actually didn't have to be afraid of that because it's a book for early primary, with females. And I'm like, well, I guess my style lends itself really well to that. I mean, and as you get older, you just sort of like embrace, like you are what you are, I mean, like, so if my work's feminine, well, so deal with it. That's how I draw, whatever. So a lot of that like self-consciousness has kind of gone by the wayside the older that I get. So it's just not, I guess, a concern as much. But that's something that I always think about. So when I started drawing this, I actually did the whole thing on my iPad. It's all done digitally.
Nice.
With my Apple Pencil and Procreate, my favorite thing. I saved all my initial drawings and sketches for it because when I originally drew the characters, they just as a result of my style, they looked older. And when Valerie came back to me and she was like, no, they got to be, like younger, like, I don't know, what age would you say, Valerie? The girls they're definitely like.
I was just envisioning like kindergarten to 2.
Yeah.
And it just looked like those girls were more like a upper elementary. Maybe
they were
early
more
middle school.
Early teen, yeah. And I don't know if maybe just because I was teaching that level, like that was just like what came to me. So it was funny because when you said they needed to be younger, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then all of a sudden I had this like conflict. I was like, how do I make them look younger? So I was like, how do I do that? So I like looked online and I looked at the work of some other illustrators and things. And there were some things I realized like, this is going to sound weird, but like making the eyes bigger and kind of rounding the faces a little bit more, something about that, like kind of worked to like make them look younger for my particular style of drawing. That was something that worked. So I did have to kind of like experiment with the concept like a few different times to get it to look the way I wanted it to. But once I figured it out, it's not like it was hard or like not. It felt right. It wasn't like I was working against anything. So, yeah.
Nice. So just a little bit of trial and error, but you got where you needed to go. So cool. All right. Now, Valerie, I wanted to circle back around to something that you had mentioned earlier. Just doing coding with, kindergartners, with kids who are so young. I think people are kind of fascinated by that because I don't think a lot of teachers do that. So can you talk a little bit more about how you use coding in your own classroom and also how some of those ideas translate into the book?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So this year I have been remote since August. So I have to say and be honest that coding has not been something that I've done a lot of this school year just because it's very difficult with remote and beginning of the year kindergartners. And it's been a year. But before that, when we were in the classroom, and I'm so excited to get back into it, we did so many different activities, and a lot of them were either sometimes they were using tech, like Scratch Junior is a great program. Codable, there's code.org activities. Like there's a lot of things that are on, the iPads that they can use, and we are fortunate to have iPads in the classroom. But there were so many things that I did that were off screen. And I think that that's as equally as important, if not more important, in the earlier grades to really get an understanding from off-screen tasks. So a lot of it is a grid. So it's just like a grid formation. And there's actually opportunities in the book. So it's really cool because the book is very interactive. So in order to get the girls back to kindness, you have to literally code on the grid and avoid those bugs. So there's bugs. And that was like a final art edit in there. It was like the last, probably one of the last details. I was like, we need to add little bugs, like because it's just like it makes sense. So then she came, So she came back with these really cute little bugs in there, and it just added a whole nother like layer to the idea of coding, and that we have bugs in friendships and we have bugs in coding, and we want to avoid them as best as we can. So. It was just, I do so many different activities. Like, for example, I get little clues about all the kids. This is more of like an icebreaker type thing at the beginning of the year. I get clues about the kids. I write them down, and then they each have their names. So they're learning how to recognize their name, write their name, and learning other kids' names. And that's a huge part of the beginning of kindergarten. So I would say, Jen loves Halloween. And the other kids have to realize, or I would say who loves Halloween, not Jen loves Halloween. I would say who loves Halloween. And then they would have to code. We have like, it's not a bebop, but it's similar. It's a mouse. So they'd have to code through the grid on the table to the child who they think it is. And so it's fun. It's exciting, but it's also getting to know each other. And that's just one example. We use our rug. I have a rug that's actually squares, which worked out perfect. It wasn't really on purpose, but it was a beautiful thing that I noticed. So we use Dash, the robot there, and then we code to different things as well. We use learning resources. There's the mouse and on the grid, and there's different puzzles that they have to get through, and they work together. And it's so cool to see because they really struggle, and it's productive struggle, and that's so important. And but they don't give up, and they really, really keep going. And our motto at our school is hand in hand with kindness we can dream, persevere, and grow. And we say it every day, so they hear that word persevere and they know what it means. And I remember one time walking over and a child was like, "Don't worry, Mrs. Sousa, we're persevering." And it's so cool to see it firsthand, that it's hard, and they were struggling, but they did not give up. And so I do many different types of coding. Those are a few. I use the Ozobots too in the classroom, which they love. There's a lot of different resources out there, but the biggest thing is the grid and thinking of that and thinking of a start and an end and some bugs and things getting in the way, and how are we going to get from one point to another. And we're going to sequence those cards. They learn directionality. They learn mathematical thinking. They learn how to agree and disagree. I mean, just so many skills. One other thing that's my favorite. Sorry, I'm going to add one more.
No, go ahead. I love all of this.
So in social studies, one of the standards is learning about our community and what makes a great community. So we talked about it. We made a list. We made a whole chart of, we need a library. We need a town hall. We need the fire department, the police department. We need the schools. And they even added a home goods in there. But they said, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then we put it on a grid, on a big piece of paper. I drew out a grid, and then I let them draw those places. So they drew the fire station, this and that. And then they had to code through our town. And it was really cool because they learned about our town and all the things that are in it. And they were, drawing pictures of even local stores and things like that. And different places, and they were able to practice coding, but also learn like a social studies lesson as well. So it just lends itself so nicely to every subject that it becomes a very multidisciplinary approach, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, Jen, I wanted to ask you just kind of along the same vein. Valerie talked about so many different ideas there. You have a little more experience with some older kids. So I'm just curious, do you use similar programs when you're getting kids started, when you're doing things, or are there different things that you think work better for older kids?
Well, it's interesting because as I move down to the lower levels, it's been very eye-opening for me what coding means in one place versus another place. So in the middle school, when we studied coding, it was much more literal, like we were using drag and drop block coding with things like Scratch, and they were learning, this is what a function is and what a variable is, but in the more like traditional terms. And then in 8th grade, they would actually do some like text-based coding. So it's funny because you would think coding at, kindergarten level, you're like, how does that even and to an outside person to watch it, they would see code. They wouldn't even recognize it as coding, that what we're doing is coding. We're literally just like giving directions is what it's giving directions and following directions. And there's a lot of concepts in coding. Like today in kindergarten, we did patterns. What is a pattern? How does a pattern repeat? I mean, we were straight up doing art. But then we talk about how a computer programmer, needs to be able to create patterns that repeat too in order to, perform the directions or the skills he wants to do. So it's interesting because the concepts are still the same at middle school, level. We did, we talked about functions in terms of like dance. So if like the Cupid shuffle, to the left, to the left, to the right, to the right. So we talked about how you would write that all out and you would go to the left 4 times and to the right 4 times. And then you would kick twice, and then and that whole thing, you would loop it and repeat it. So we wrote a program for the Cupid shuffle, so it's just kind of like tying those things into like more familiar terms. That works at all levels. But yeah, it was interesting to me. So like coding, how this book explains it, is not coding the way kids are writing programs and making games at, a middle school level, but it is absolutely all tied together and the concepts are the same, so that when they see it at middle school, they're like, oh yeah, it's a pattern, it's a loop, it's something that repeats, so those kinds of core concepts, they remain constant.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you. And then Valerie, just real quick before we wrap things up, can you tell everybody where they can find your website, where they can order your book, all that good stuff?
Yes. So the website is www.valeriesousaauthor.com. And there's information about me and Jen, and there's extra resources on there as well. So there's many resources that some Jen created and some I created. There's digital and ones that you can print for both styles of learning in 2020.
Yeah.
And then there's also, the book is available on Amazon. It's also available at Barnes & Noble. And if you get bulk orders, which are more than 10, you can order right from edumatchpublishing.com.
All right. That's perfect. We'll make sure we link to all of those in the show notes so everybody can find that. Valerie, Jen, thank you both so much. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for having us.
All right. I really enjoyed that conversation. I loved hearing from Valerie about how she takes what she's doing in the classroom and connects it into the book that she authored. And I also appreciated how passionate she is about what she teaches and how many great ideas she wanted to share. I also love talking to Jen, obviously. She's been on the show before. She's wonderful. But it was cool to hear about her artwork submission process, what it was like to illustrate the book, and just kind of hear how that process works. But if you are interested in Hour of Code, this book is a great place to get started with that. We will put all of the relevant links in the show notes so you can find the book. You can find Valerie's website. You can find Jen on social media. She shares so much. She is so helpful there. And Jen even has an awesome read aloud of Coding to Kindness on YouTube that you can use in your classroom. It is a great place to start with coding. And I hope Valerie and Jen have inspired you to do just that. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. Thank you for listening, and I will tell you that we have a very cool artist coming on next week that I cannot wait to introduce you to. So I hope you will give it a listen then.